Hello viewers, I want to play a game. On the monitor in front of you, you'll be seeing a review from the movie Spiral. The challenge is to move your mouse over the subscribe button and click subscribe. I know this is a lot of work for some of you, but it's a price to pay for quality content. Live with good content or die of boredom. Make your choice.
You know, I've been a fan of the Saw franchise for as long as I can remember, so I was super excited when I heard they were making a new movie. Even if I didn't think the last couple inches were the best and had definitely had dipped in quality, but they were always still dumb fun anyways, and enjoyable nonetheless. So I was very excited, and seeing they had veteran Saw director Darren Lynn Bousman, who directed Saw 2, 3, and 4, made me even more excited. So what do I think of this new entry? What are my thoughts? Well, let's jump right into my review of Wow, 9 Saw movies. This franchise has shown that it's still going strong and has no intent to slow down, spanning 9 movies over 17 years. And that is not to mention that the first 7 of those 17 years were in a row, releasing every Halloween, getting the series that famous tagline.
If it's Halloween, it must be Saw.
Before dawn, make your choice.
That was until the franchise was supposed to end with Saw 3D, the final chapter, or Saw 7, however you want to call it. But you know Hollywood, everything's either gotta be rebooted or milked dry. It was not until 2017 with the addition of Jigsaw that we saw the series continued, but not every year, as we didn't see another movie in the franchise or a sequel until, well, 2021 with Spiral from the Book of Saw, originally planned to release in 2020. But delayed because of the pandemic, which sadly is why it took me so long to watch this movie, because it was initially only released in theaters and mine was still closed because of the very thing that delayed the movie. And coming from a huge Saw fan, that kind of sucked. But hey, this is not a deep dive into the Saw franchise, that's a video for another time. We are here to discuss my thoughts on Spiral, the newest addition to the series. Now a heads up, this video will be split into 2 parts. There's this regular review, and after this you can expect a more laid back, non-scripted, spoilers discussion, where I go more in depth about things that I couldn't in this review because of, well, you know, spoilers. You guys know how spoilers work. Anyways, what did I think of Spiral? Well, that's a hard question. Was it everything I was hoping for from a Saw movie? Well, no. Does that mean it's a terrible movie? Well, also no. First, I know I said that Hollywood is always milking franchises, and well, let's be honest, it's true. I have a bit of a different opinion on that when it comes to the Saw movies. No matter how over the top these movies get, that's kind of half the fun, seeing what's happening, what twists and turns are going to happen this time, how this is still happening, how that actually happened in the past. That's kind of half the fun of these movies and why I like in watching them now. They could just keep making Saw movies for like a long time and I will still go see them even if they're terrible because I just really enjoy the franchise. But anyways, enough of that. First things first, let's get into the actual movie I'm reviewing, starting with the things I liked about it. Number 1, the acting in this movie is amazing. Well, for the most part. I'll get into some of that later. But having Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson in a Saw movie together just feels like a fever dream. And well, it's just as amazing as you would expect it to be. Hearing Samuel L. Jackson say,
You wanna play games, motherfucker? Alright, I'll play.
is just mwah. And Chris Rock's opening monologue about Forrest Gump is just also really good. Number 2, the cinematography in this movie is amazing. This movie is shot beautifully, as to be expected, as we have Saw veteran Darren Lynn Bousman, as I was saying earlier, who directed Saw 2, 3, and 4. Which to a lot of people, me included, would say is some of, if not the best Saw movies. Although I will say the first Saw movie is definitely still my favorite in the series. Nonetheless, we get some of those amazing sped up shots that Saw is famous for, that originated in Saw 1. You know, the ones that look like someone sat on the fast forward button on the remote and then press play again. Just some really good up close shots that only a Saw fan would find weirdly beautiful in a way. And number 3, the traps. Depending on who you ask, the traps are the most or one of the most important things when it comes to a Saw movie. And I can gladly say that every trap in this movie, except for maybe one, is pretty good and creative. There are 5 traps in the movie, 6 if you want to get technical. One shy away from being 7, which every other Saw movie had about 7 traps in them, depending on what you consider a trap. But that's kind of where the positives end, sadly, which I can get more into now with this section of the review, which are the things I didn't like, or the negatives, if you will. First of all, the runtime. This movie has a runtime of an hour and 35 minutes. 5 minutes being give or take about the credits, so more like an hour 30, which there's nothing wrong with a movie having a short runtime. Hell, most Saw movies are this length anyways. I've seen movies do great with a short runtime, and I've seen many movies that definitely should have had a shorter runtime. In this case, I don't think the movie is rushed per se, but I definitely think another 30 minutes or so could have benefited the movie greatly, having us care more about the characters and things that they introduce us to, and what this movie tries to do. Let me explain. This movie is a sequel, yes, continuity wise, but it's also more of a standalone and like spin-off movie that you don't need to have seen any of the previous Saw movies to understand, which is fine. I'm 100% on board with that idea. I think it's pretty interesting if it was more fleshed out than it was. But on the other hand, that comes my second issue with the film, which is a disconnect, if you will. I'm totally on board for a standalone Saw movie. I am, but this movie did in a way that I didn't really like. Not to say it couldn't be done, I could definitely see what they were going for, it was just executed poorly. Let me give you an example. You have these big portions of the movie which are like these really interesting flashback scenes, which I would love to have seen more of, but then it cuts back to like this really messy story. I would have loved to see more of those flashback scenes, or like more of what happened back then to get us more invested in the characters and what's actually going on with them. This movie suffers from not knowing what it wants to be. Does it want to be a more serious cop-driven story about like the new Saw investigation, the case, and less about like the people who are actually in the traps? Or does it want to be a typical over-the-top Saw movie? It tries to be both, and in doing that, fails in both. The story is very all over the place and very predictable, which no Saw movie should ever be. I kind of missed the convoluted stories that the previous Saw movies had. And another thing about the story is that it's very loosely about Saw. Like, I understand it's a spin-off, but outside of like one line in the traps, this could have not been a Saw movie at all. Which, if you want me to explain that better, because it doesn't really make that much sense, make sure you tune in for the spoilers discussion. Now to talk about my third issue with the film. Remember how I said that the acting from Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson was really good? Well, it is, but it's pretty much just them who carry the film. Now, that's not to say that every other actor in the film is terrible. I actually really enjoyed some of like the side characters, but some of the other people who were actually starring in the film, I thought didn't really do that good of a job. One of the two big ones is Marisol Nichols, who plays Captain Angie Garza, who you might recognize as Hermione Lodge from the TV show Riverdale, and Max Minghella, who plays Detective William Schrank, who plays the partner to Chris Rock's character in the movie. You might recognize him as Divya Narenthra, who is the friend of the Winklevoss twins in The Social Network. I have no idea if I'm saying that correctly, but that's my shot at the name. Which is weird casting for sure, but I'm not gonna say anything about that. This movie has Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson in a Saw movie. I'm not saying they were terrible. They were alright. Marisol Nichols, she did okay. She was alright in the movie. But Max Minghella could have done a lot better, if I'm being honest. I definitely think he was probably one of the weakest parts of the movie. Like I said though, it's passable. I'm not gonna expect like Oscar-worthy acting from a Saw movie. I don't necessarily blame them, more so the writers, Josh Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger, who directed the 2017 Jigsaw movie, which is in my opinion the worst movie in the franchise. Now after all that, you must think I hate this movie. Well, no. Did I enjoy it? Yeah. Did I have a good time? Also yes. Do I think it's the worst Saw movie ever made? No. That still belongs to 2017's Jigsaw. Even though it's weird that Jigsaw felt more like a Saw movie than this one. But no, I actually did really enjoy this movie. I would love to see more into this part of Saw's story, as it does seem like the only way to follow the story of Saw as it is right now. So a more fleshed out movie that's better written and has a bit more of a direction, I would love to see. I would hate to see Saw movies end on this note. But was it on the weaker side of Saw movies? Well, coming from a Saw fan's perspective, sadly yes. But if this is your first time seeing a Saw movie, well, one, go watch the first one, it's still amazing and still holds up. And two, I'm sure you'll enjoy this movie just fine and probably enjoy it more than I did, because this is coming from the perspective of a big Saw fan. Now I'm new to this whole reviewing movies thing, as this is my very first review on this channel. Hi, by the way, all the new people. So I don't really have my own rating system yet or anything like that. I will give a rating this time, but do keep in mind with a grain of salt that there is many issues with a numerical rating system, and the whole idea of a rating varies from person to person. So what I might think is good, you might not like, and vice versa. If I'm gonna do the numerical rating system, I'm gonna do it 1 through 5, not 1 through 10. It's gonna be 1 through 5, including half ratings, which is what I'm used to over on my Letterboxd, which is where I review every movie I've ever seen. Over 1,200 movies listed at the time of this review. You should definitely go check out my Letterboxd, by the way, if you want to see any of my other reviews. Anyways, for me, this movie is definitely, I'd say, between a 2.5 and a 3. I don't like going over 0.5, so I'm not gonna give this movie like a 2.75 or anything like that. So for me, I'd say this movie is a solid 3 out of 5. But like I said, this is coming from the perspective of a huge Saw fan. If you're someone who's never seen Saw before, I could easily see someone enjoying this movie even more, maybe giving this a 3.5 to maybe even a 4. Maybe. I know that all sounds confusing, but hopefully that makes some sort of sense. Now, that's pretty much everything for my review of Spiral from the Book of Saw, but I'm not done discussing it yet. Make sure to subscribe if you want to keep updated with my videos and know when I post my spoilers discussion, where I can go into more details about things that I couldn't in this review. And remember to hit that like button to show your support and ring the notification bell to know whenever I just upload a new video in general. All my social links will be listed in the description below. You already know about my letterbox, but if you want something that's a bit different, you can also follow me over on my Twitch, listed right here, where I play games in my free time whenever I'm not watching movies. Anywhere else to find me will also be listed in the description below. Thank you guys for watching my review, and I hope you enjoyed it. Until then, I will catch you guys next time. See ya. Bye.
Game over.